Okay, Liam Holmes back in the studio.
Here we go, round two.
This is part two of our nutrition series, really. Part one went down an absolute storm, which was no surprise. We introduced who you are in true Without Limits fashion. We then talked about, I guess it's the foundational principles involved with nutrition and supplementation. And people found it very, very useful, which was amazing. We did say that we'll come on to a part two. There'll probably be a part three, and you'll probably end up having a more regular feature on the podcast, because I think your expertise and some of the insights in from the coaching world, nutrition world, as well as actually internally with what we're developing is going to be good for our listeners. So today we're going to talk about more advanced strategies within nutrition. Things like periodization, nutrient timing, and then also delve into a bit more of, I guess, sports supplementation and some of the products that we're working on, but also some things that are a little bit more niche, I think, to people's kind of main daily stack. I want to start by just touching on some of the findings that you've seen now we're 5 weeks into the summer shred, because I think a lot of the principles we spoke about last time around are relatable to body composition, fat loss, people looking to maintain a good physique, which is, I think, where most people start with their nutrition strategy, or the sort of things they should be thinking about when they're formulating their nutrition strategy. So I think that being played out in the real world with the summer shred will give, I guess, some people some insight. So what have you found over the first sort of 4 or 5 weeks and now at the halfway point? What are the common things people are struggling with or have been struggling prior to, I guess, the accountability and support we've been giving them?
Yeah, I think what we've seen is that it's something that people are coming onto the summer shred in anticipation that there's going to be very similar to other challenges or other diets. And actually we've used the principles and given them a method that is more realistic, more sustainable. So all diets, all of these things will be following similar principles. But what we've done is tried to make it realistic by giving them maintenance targets, giving them realistic deficits to follow, focusing on good protein intake, and then setting them up with education. And I think that support from that side of thing has been something that again, not to say that no one's doing it, but I don't think anyone's doing it as well as we've been doing it, with the weekly calls, but then going over different topics and really focusing on that habit building. And I think that's a term that's probably overused, in our coaching kind of sphere. But we've really focused on building this foundation of habits that's allowing people to get incredible results, but now learn how to sustain them and learn how to see progress with it not feeling like a struggle or not feeling like they're dieting. And that's just been the constant feedback. Like, I don't feel like it's a diet. I've never felt so much supported. I'm learning so much. Even people that are more advanced on there are giving this feedback to say, like, I kind of thought I was, clued up on this stuff, but the way it's delivered or the consistency of education and support has been it's been incredible. And once you have this kind of holistic approach, this well-rounded approach to, it's not just here's your calories, here's some recipes, track your calories and get on with it. I think then people start to kind of buy into, okay, well, this is actually something that's going to be, long-term, like a long-term thing that I can actually follow and see real results. So we're now into, like, say, week 5, where we've gone through that initial period where people have that little kind of like wiggle room where they're like, oh, how do I do this? And personalization of my nutrition, of my timings, of do I need to adjust things? And now people are just in this nice rhythm with, like, oh, cool, like I've seen some results, or maybe I haven't seen results, but we learned how to adjust these, and now they're starting to see progress. And now we're getting into the depths of the challenge. It does become a little bit more challenging, but they've got a really amazing foundation. So people are almost like, they're not worried, they're not scared about this next kind of 3 weeks where we've dropped the calories a little bit, and they're going to be seeing incredible results.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, the reason I kind of ask is just to reiterate the point, and I think we sort of beat the drum in episode 1. Myself and Sam did a Q&A a couple of weeks ago, and a few questions again were around nutrition, and I said, I signposted back to that part 1 that we did to say, look, we unpacked everything there, and really it's now a case about you just going and doing the work, to use your phrase, put some fucking effort in. And you're reiterating the point is that you use the word there, education and learning, quite a bit. It's just the people that are willing to put in those first 3-4 weeks to learn, and it's learning by actually absorbing the information, but also learning by doing, and then going, oh, this isn't working. I need to elicit slightly more of a deficit or readjust my output with steps or whatever it may be. But the people that are having success are the people that are learning, and they're learning through doing. And once you've done 3-4 weeks of this and you realize that it's just like something you just need to then be consistent with and repeat, you realize that there's no magic answer. It's just right now there's a number of people trying to lose body fat, not losing any. And the harsh reality is you're not in a deficit because you're not putting in the work with understanding what you're consuming or increasing your output.
Yeah, I could not agree more, mate. Like it isn't rocket science, but it's difficult to do. And what we try to do is simplify the process, is to remove all of the noise around nutrition and be like, no, look, don't worry about this, don't worry about this. Like, this is the thing that you need to focus on. And when you allay all those people's fears around, oh, should I be doing this? Or should I be fasting? Should I be worrying about this type of food? I'm like, no, like, let's look at what you're currently doing, make small steps forward. And people just have this almost like, you know, relief of stress around nutrition. And they're like, oh, okay, well, this is what I have to do. And yes, there's a little bit of figuring it out at the start, like you said, but you know, this is where we're here to support through the community chat, through the calls, through myself, Paddy, and Liam providing this guidance and support. And often the case, it's very similar things that we're seeing, you know, and then other people can kind of go, oh, yeah, that helps me. And community is a massive thing in it. And that support, it's just been incredible with that side of things. I think a big part of what we wanted to do is to educate, deliver, and then remove that reliance on a coach or a nutrition plan and empower people. And I think if we really tried to kind of close that loop to be like, if you understand the principles, if we deliver it in a way that you can actually absorb it and go, cool, this makes complete sense to me. It's rooted in the science. It's not weird and wonderful. It's not super restrictive. And then you remove that, like you say, reliance on, I need a new plan, a new set of macros, I need a new plan now. What do I do? Or what do I do after my 8 weeks? You know, you empower people, and then they can go back to the education side of things, and probably something that we're going to talk about in a minute. They can move on to the next level. They can move on to the next step. They can get a little bit more detailed. But the problem that I see, a lot of people and a lot of coaches jump way ahead. They'll try to go to the more advanced strategies that we're maybe going to talk about now, maybe miss episode 1 and be like, oh, I need to get like super dialed in with my carbohydrate splits, high carb days, low carb days, periodization around this, and that. And I'm like, no, you don't. You really need to lay this foundation. And when you start to follow this process of going to this next step, you cultivate the skill, you cultivate the knowledge, you cultivate the habits to allow you to sustain the results once you maintain them. If you jump way ahead, you might be able to get initial results, but there's no way that you've gone through that process of cultivating the skill to be able to stay there once you've seen the results.
Yeah, epic. I mean, it really is, nutrition really is simple, but it is the learning rate and acquiring the skills that then can serve you for the long term. Okay, parking the summer shred and the principles around body composition, right? I think we've done that now. You referenced now periodization. So as we move into the quote unquote, I guess the more intricate detail around nutrition strategies, periodization is a big part of how anyone would formulate their training program. So if people are familiar with trying to get stronger, trying to get fitter, periodization is in simple terms a way in which you would structure out a program so that you're going through different phases to elicit a certain adaptation or response. So with periodization for nutrition, I'm sure the kind of the overriding principle is the same, but just unpack periodization within nutrition. When would you apply it? Why would you apply it? Is it something that is like a year-round pursuit, or is it something that you'd start to dial in around certain goals, whether it's body composition or whether it's social situations or managing competitions or training peaks, etc.?
Yeah, it overlaps a lot there. So body composition, performance, you know, different times of the year where you've got different things going on. It's all important. And I think that periodization is something that once you've laid the foundations, people often overlook. So they'll either disregard it and go like, oh, I'll just diet when I feel like dieting, or I'll focus on improving my aerobic fitness at certain times of the year when maybe it's not conducive to you know, that time of year. So what I like to do is to take that bird's eye view, and I do like to go for a year. Okay, if that feels overwhelming to you, then maybe you're going to do 6 months, but you could break it into quarters. So like over the year, you could be like, right, first quarter of the year, what do I need to do? It might be body composition. You know, it might be like I need to get a little bit leaner. I've put on a bit of weight over winter. Or it might be like I'm trying to train for the marathon. So then your block in terms of your first quarter should be performance focused, body composition focused. It should be maintenance focused. If you've got a lot of stuff, travel with work, etc. You've got to look at your situation and then try to map that out in terms of like, this is not the best time for me to be dieting. My miles are going up. I'm training for an event. This is not the time for me to try and be into a deficit. And the common thing that people fail is they try to do that. They don't periodize their nutrition, and then they fail. They get stressed, they get overwhelmed, they don't actually achieve any of their goals. So I would encourage people to try to think about times where they can periodize their nutrition. So first part of the year, a lot of people will focus on body composition, but then you can't keep focusing on body composition for the whole year. You can't continually diet. So that's when you can be like, okay, well, I've identified at the start of the year or whenever, the start of the quarter, now I need to focus on my aerobic capacity. Okay, I want to get fitter, improve my cardiovascular fitness. So you can just nod towards that. It's not that you disregard everything else. It's that periodization is more of a focus and like a priority. So when you're talking about that might be that you do more zone 2. It might be you incorporate some fasted training to improve your metabolic flexibility. So you enhance your body's ability to be able to utilize fat as an energy source, shift the graph in terms of when you start to burn carbohydrates so you become a little bit more efficient. We spoke about this on the High Rocks Day. So
let's dive into that a little bit more detail.
So this is where doing zone 2 will obviously be utilizing a certain energy pathway. Okay, so you got ATP, PC system, you got an anaerobic glycolysis, and you got aerobic glycolysis. So we think that it's like a switch. Like as soon as you do like sprinting, it's only the ATP system, and when you're doing more aerobic stuff or endurance stuff, it's a switch there. It's not. There's a lot of interplay. What you can do, and what we see is that if you improve your aerobic base by doing zone 2 training, like the type of training is absolutely crucial. And then you compare this with manipulating your nutrition. This could be fasted training, okay? When you're doing zone 2, not when you're going to be doing, a 45-minute CrossFit workout.
Yeah.
Because the pathway that you're trying to elicit a change is conducive to doing zone 2 training. This then improves your metabolic flexibility, so your body's ability to burn fat at a slightly higher intensity. This is very valuable for anything like high rocks, especially like overall endurance performance, because you're not ripping through your glycogen and your carbohydrates at lower intensities. So CrossFitters naturally are more carbohydrate dominant, so they'll click into using carbohydrate very early in their exercise session or at lower intensities. The problem is that when you're doing endurance training, longer distance, we don't want to do that. We want to spare muscle glycogen for when it's needed at this higher intensity, when it's very challenging to burn body fat or use fat as an energy source, So if you can do that and improve your body's flexibility of using different fuel sources at different intensities, it's a very beneficial thing to improve your overall performance. What often people do is that they'll try to do, they don't have any kind of focus on this. So they'll just do training, smashing themselves all year round with no kind of nod to this, or they'll do it, but they'll do it in the incorrect way because they're not setting their nutrition up to be conducive to helping to elicit that change. Periodization is just being aware of making that, aligning your nutrition towards your training. And I think identifying times where you lay that aerobic base is very, very beneficial, depending on what you're doing. Obviously, if you're doing bodybuilding, there's an argument that might help in terms of like recovery between sets, etc. But it's probably less important than if you're doing a high rocks, an ultra, a triathlon, a half marathon. But if you don't do that, you're still going to see results if you follow a marathon program, but you're not going to see as good of results, or you're not going to see the results that you think you should from the level of training that you're doing. So I think that if you really focus on periodizing your nutrition alongside what you're doing with your training, you start to see really, really good results.
Just a couple of bits to pick up on, just so people don't get too confused. With the training fasted to become more, fat adapted, fat oxidation, we're saying that just for people that are still worried about body composition, so long as calories are equated on any given day, the training fasted versus unfasted, there'll be no change in body composition. So we're talking about a performance adaptation here rather than a body composition change. So that we should potentially go through periods of training where we're looking at zone 2 training in a fasted state to improve our body's ability to use fat as its energy source, so that when we go into a higher work rate where we need to start then using carbohydrate, we delay that that time.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is where it might get confusing for some people in that, let's say, for example, they're doing marathon training. We're often told, make sure you're fueling for your marathon training. So what is the difference there between like doing some zone 2 training versus doing some marathon training? Is the one that is exclusively zone 2, where we're just looking to accrue more time on a bike, for example, in your zone 2, versus something where we're actually trying to run times out on the road with our marathon training?
Yeah, like definitely, like that's a periodization in terms of within your training program. What we want to do is align your nutrition to that. So when you're doing that low and slow, that more zone 2, earlier in your training cycle,
season, yeah,
it would be very beneficial for you to do that fasted, because it's going to improve your metabolic flexibility. As you get towards the latter end, or the more performance focused part of your training cycle, maybe 6 weeks out, 8 weeks out, 10 weeks out of your marathon training program, obviously the intensity of this is going to go up. The volume is going to go up. As training changes, so should nutrition. So then that zone 2 might be less. Like you might do less of that, or it might be a higher volume. So then training fasted isn't going to be conducive to helping you get the most out of that training session. So that's when you would switch. That's when you would train fasted. But you built the base. You've already improved your body's ability to burn fat, or utilize fat, at a higher intensity. So you've laid that foundation. So when you add these things back in, you can start to then, upgrade your body's machinery to be able to utilize carbohydrates, because that's going to be something you're going to use in the race. It's aligning your nutrition to that training cycle. And I spoke about this before, that a lot of people don't change their nutrition through their training cycles. It's like, this is what I do, and they just kind of follow the same thing through like a 10-week period, 12-week, 16-week. And actually, it doesn't need to be an overhaul. It just needs to be small manipulations. And I think that's when you can be seeing some really, really good results.
I think that's the really key bit, is that to go back to what you said, when you look at this kind of bird's eye view over 12 months, a lot of people can see where they want their career to be in 12 months' time, or what do I want to try and achieve in my personal life or professional life in 2025, for example. They might even look at, what do I want to try and achieve in 2025 with my fitness endeavors. I want to run my first marathon. I want to qualify for the Hyrox World Champions, whatever it may be. But then they don't then tag on, what does that mean then for my nutrition, or my periodization of my nutrition for that year? And what do I need to try and organize and self-organize with preparing food, social situations, etc., weekends, and account for all of those things. So it becomes very reactive when they're in the moment. And if it becomes reactive, they default to what was easy or convenient, and then ultimately probably less optimal for what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, the reactivity is an absolute essential point, because I think that's, not to group people, but I do think that's a very common thing. It's, my mate's running a half marathon, I'll do that. It's 6 weeks, I'll just crack on. Like, that's fine. But if you can have that bird's eye view, 6 months, whatever, the first half of the year, the first 3 months of the year even, and try to do things that are going to be conducive to that situation that you're in at that moment in time, rather than, I've put on a little bit of weight over the summer, I'll diet down. Whereas actually then you're trying to train for a fitness event. And again, that's not conducive. So if you can map it out to be like, you shouldn't be dieting the whole year. You should try to focus on certain aspects of your fitness at certain parts of the year. You're going to see really, really good progress. Again, remember, this is more advanced strategies. General population, just turning up to your training session and they're taking care of that periodization for you, what they should do. Like, you're going to get most of the way there, improving your overall fitness. But then when you've laid that foundation, you need to then focus on this type of thing. And it might be a hypertrophy phase where you go and spend 12 weeks of putting on a little bit of strength and muscle. It might be then that you diet down for 4 weeks, and then you might be focusing on your aerobic fitness because you want to go and be doing a triathlon or a half marathon or whatever. And then you go back through that cycle again. Whereas if you just try to do everything, you don't actually achieve anything.
Yeah, I was actually just going to bring it back to the fact that we are talking about very sophisticated bits of detail here with these advanced nutrition strategies, but I do think it's going to be awesome for the listeners, because a lot of people that are listening, or that will listen to part one, will get that, and in time, over 6 months, they'll feel as though body composition, they're on the right track, they've found some flow with it, and then they're thinking about the competition, the marathon, whatever. And if you can layer in this level of detail, you're going to have far more fun doing it, because you're going to be well fueled, and you're going to have a real strategy, and it's intentional. And you're also going to get the results that probably you're looking for, and that hopefully you deserve, because you've put that work in. Okay, periodization I think now is understood. So we're basically pegging our nutrition strategy to different times of the year when we're looking for a desired outcome.
Yep.
And its change has got to feel different. So if we're training for something different, it's new, it's a new stimulus to our body, the nutrition strategy should have some sort of iteration on what we've done in the past.
100%.
Okay, great. I think where people often go wrong, and this is probably where things like overtraining gets banded around, injuries come into it, is that people might train for something a bit more performance related, higher demand on the body, but they're still have a nutrition strategy that was conducive with when they were trying, quote unquote, to lose body fat, or just eating sporadically, healthy at times, quote unquote, and then just falling off the bandwagon at weekends. And the body will soon repel those efforts. Okay, cool. So moving on to, I guess, the next piece of this, nutrient timing. Again, in the past, there's been a lot of, I guess, evidence that's sort of come out around the importance of it, or perhaps not, it not being so important. So key things for you in terms of nutrient timing. I know that we've had a lot of success from a body composition standpoint with the 30-90 method.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's something that you can still put into play with performance nutrition. It's just the way those meals or snacks might be comprised, what they're comprised of will be slightly different. So nutrient timing, what's the sort of go-to bits there that we're thinking about?
Yeah, so nutrient timing basically means just ensuring that you're focusing on specific protein, carbohydrates, timings around workouts and across the day. So we have to understand that overall energy availability is the most key thing, okay, for anything, whether it's performance, body composition change. But then once you've laid that foundation, then you can focus on nutrient timing. And again, advanced strategies, it's not going to be groundbreaking, but it will make a difference. So if we break nutrient timing down into pre-workout nutrition and post-workout nutrition, like often people will focus on post-workout nutrition and for good reason. Like post-workout nutrition, your body and your muscles are a little bit more sensitive to absorbing protein and carbohydrates. Glycogen resynthesis rates are a little bit higher when you've trained. So getting some carbohydrates in within that first 2 hours, that anabolic window, it exists. Like, again, for most people, do they need to worry about it? Probably not. More advanced trainer, yes, it matters. Like it will enhance your replenishment of glycogen if you focus on getting that in the first couple of hours after your training session. If you're looking to enhance your performance, like you say, you're doing higher volume, higher intensity training, then these little details matter. Protein timing, pre and post workout, again, maximizing that anabolic nature of your training session is a key thing. You want to be trying to eke out as much as you can from your nutrition. So focusing on this is really, really key. What a lot of people do is they worry about this so much and then disregard everything else. It's like, oh, I'm focused on my pre-workout and I'm focused on my post-workout, and then they disregard like actually overall intake. I mean, pre-workout will help, post-workout will help, but you really need to be laying that overall intake first. Pre-workout nutrition then is something that, again, people will just kind of default to caffeine. And I think we're going to talk about pre-workout nutrition in a minute, supplementation, but they would default to caffeine. They would underfuel going into it and then not create the stimulus that is going to allow them to see a enhancement in their performance. So I think pre-workout nutrition, as you get more advanced, is really key. And when we talk about that, that's more like the 30 minutes, the 90 minutes, the 3 hours, so what you're eating preceding to your training session. And if you get that right, then the stimulus that you create is going to be larger. The effect of that training session is going to be amplified. So then when you couple that with good post-workout nutrition, you start to see this real enhancement of your training session. And I think a lot of people will disregard that pre-workout nutrition. They'll just take a pre-workout supplement that is normally just loaded with caffeine and a few other ingredients and get through their session and then worry about post-workout. And I genuinely think that as you become more advanced, and it's definitely when you start to do a little bit more volume, that really finding that pre-workout nutrition rhythm and pattern that works for you is key. And that's where we develop that 13 minutes where you're hydrating, taking some carbohydrates, 90 minutes you're having some form of carbohydrate-based snack or something, and then obviously preceding that, depending on what time you're training, it's 3 hours or 5 hours beforehand, you're eating a more kind of balanced mixed meal. Genuinely, when we get people to do this, like they're like, I can't believe how good I feel. Like I feel fueled, I feel focused, I feel connected, I feel like I'm getting more out of this session, I feel a better pump, I feel like I can keep going in my training session. And they're like, I'm like, yeah, that should be the norm for most of your training sessions. Like you shouldn't just be struggling through, or you shouldn't just have really good training sessions Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then accumulate some fatigue, and then you get through on Friday and Saturday or something. So it is, for me, as we get more advanced, I really would advise people to be focusing on that pre-workout nutrition and trying to figure out what works. And again, carbohydrates are going to be a key determinant of your performance. So making sure you're eating enough going into your training session is going to be beneficial for getting the most out of it. And this can come down to strength training, more functional fitness, or endurance performance.
Yeah, I think we can do a little segue here into the pre-workout supplementation space. Because for a lot of people that particularly training first thing in the morning or shooting out at lunchtime to try and get their training session in, or even after work before they've had their dinner. So there's kind of like awkward period between lunch and dinner where they might be underfueled. And it's a funny one because if in the nutrition space, there's a huge movement, rightly so, because I think we have an obesity crisis, but a huge movement towards 0 calorie, 0 sugar supplementation, particularly when we look at things like hydration, electrolyte drinks, pre-workout supplementation, etc. Which, as we're saying, we need to be able to fuel that performance. So we're getting ourselves amped up, arousal's higher, caffeine, we're hydrated, etc. But we don't actually have any substance in the body that's going to potentially drive greater intensity within our training session to achieve a greater adaptation. And that's probably the missing link for a lot of people, which I know is difficult because most people are trying to use exercise or fitness as a way to control body composition and lose some weight. So it depends which lens we're looking at it through. But for a lot of these listeners, particularly the people that are in this functional fitness space looking to develop strength as well as fitness, there needs to be more consideration to how we're fueling those sessions. So let's do a little segue into what we've done with the workout fuel. I know people will be familiar with it, and it's been a great product for us. Actually, we're struggling to keep it in stock. But yeah, those 30 minutes, those 30 to 60 minutes. So carbohydrate being a key thing. Why do you think that the nutrition space right now, or the sports supplementation space right now, isn't talking about those bits of fueling a workout as well as the hydration, the caffeine?
I think mainly that overall glycogen availability is the key thing. So taking in a pre-workout, you don't need the carbohydrates in there, right? So taking caffeine away from your workout window isn't going to have any benefit for your exercise performance. But getting carbohydrates in away from your workout is going to have a benefit because it's going to store glycogen. You're going to get most out of it. So I do think that that's where a lot of supplementation have gone and been like, well, you don't need it in there if you're eating enough.
Very fair point.
Caffeine is an acute ergogenic aid, so it will help with your performance. Like, it's been proven, lots of robust research. I think there's an issue with people being scared of eating carbohydrates before their workout for the body composition kind of focused goal. Oh, if I eat carbs, I'm not going to be burning fat. I'm going to be putting on weight, and that's not what I want to elicit out of this training session. And obviously that just comes down from an education perspective. Like you say, all of the research shown when calories are matched, doesn't matter if you train fed or fasted, you will lose body fat because we know it's an overall energy deficit that we need to create. So it doesn't matter that you're training fed or you're training fasted. There is an increase in fat oxidation if you train fasted, but that doesn't it doesn't translate into a body fat loss if you eat in a surplus across the rest of the day. So that education side of things, I think, is where a lot of people miss in terms of why people don't use carbohydrates beforehand. The education thing around using carbohydrates isn't lacking in team sports, in elite sports, in endurance kind of training. It's more this general gym goer that are a little bit worried about it. And maybe it's like, oh, do I need carbohydrates for like a 45-minute session or an hour session? And like, the thing is, there's a lot of context around it. What we're finding is that those times that you spoke about, 6 a.m., 5:30, 6 a.m., 7 a.m., after work, before dinner, you get a lot of benefits out of taking carbohydrates in there, because there are times where people struggle to get a snack in, or they struggle to fuel their workouts because they're coming off of their sleep, or they've only had lunch and they're on the way to the gym because they're in meetings all afternoon. So utilizing some liquid form of carbohydrates that's very easy to digest was something that really helped a lot of people. We found that people were snacking on the wrong things. So eating like protein bars going into workouts and feeling sluggish, feeling like, it wasn't conducive to helping them to get more out of their session. So timing that carbohydrates is a very beneficial thing to help increase your exercise performance. And as we spoke about just now, if you can get a better session, you create a better stimulus, you build more muscle, you get fitter, you get stronger, you potentially burn more calories, which is then going to help you with whatever goal you're trying to do, whether you're trying to lose weight, whether you're trying to be stronger, fitter, faster. A lot of pre-workout supplements will go down that route of 0 calories, 0 sugar, just overstimulated. And I think people don't necessarily need to be more stimulated, they need to be better fueled. And I think that's where we're seeing real good results, because there is a few other pre-workout supplements on the market that do have carbohydrates in, but I think we've created an incredible product, and I think that we're now getting more and more feedback, and people are understanding the importance of it, because when they take it, they go, "Oh my God, I feel great in my training session." It's not that they say that you need to be using it before everyone, but it's definitely something that you can utilize at certain scenarios to help you get more out of your training session. And in essence, that's what we're all trying to do. You're trying to have a better training session.
In terms of the amount of carbohydrate then in this kind of, I guess, acute period before training, we've got 25 grams of 20 grams of carbohydrate. So if people are looking for a liquid carbohydrates or a snack, how many grams are we looking for pre-training session?
Yeah, in that close period, that 30 minutes beforehand, we don't really need any more. Like, you don't want to have like 50, 60 grams. There's potential for that kind of rebound hypoglycemia if you're getting way too much. Plus, we're only doing 45 minutes to an hour. Most people, do we really need it? Yes, if you're doing maybe a 2-hour bike session or a long run, then there's probably efficacy in taking a little bit more. But this is more targeted at that person that is well fueled, needs that little bit of a top up, and getting that 20 grams was just something that isn't going to cause too much gastric kind of upset of taking like 40, 50, 60 grams. And it's just going to provide you with that little bit of readily available energy.
Nice. I mean, so those that are, I guess, more weight conscious or body composition conscious, we're talking about 80 to 120 calories. Yeah, whether that's our workout fuel or anything else that's kind of comparable. It's if that's your concern with your body composition, then there's probably bigger fish to fry.
That's exactly it. Like, think about what contributes to 80 calories across the day.
Yeah,
it's mad. Like that's going to get more. You're going to get more benefit out of putting 80 calories there and removing 80 calories from somewhere else, like half a tablespoon of oil or 1 small cortado. Like, you can remove that to get more out of your workout.
Let's stay down this track of this pre-workout supplementation, because I think we've done the nutrition piece. So caffeine, we said, huge benefits. A little bit of carbohydrate potentially for some people if they're caught in that period of first thing in the morning, or after work before their evening meal. What else could we go to in terms of supplements that we should be looking at that have got efficacy? And I mean, we can maybe touch on some of the stuff we put in our workout fuel, but is there anything, let's talk about that and anything outside of that that we're missing?
Citrulline malate is got some very robust evidence behind it in terms of using it in that acute period before your workout. So citrulline helps with vasodilation, so increasing blood flow, and it's got really, really good benefits for improving exercise performance, a little bit on terms of helping recovery, probably more from a vasodilation perspective. But this is something that a lot of pre-workouts have in, and the research is pretty robust in terms of helping with different exercise performance and seeing an ergogenic benefit with that. The things that I see in pre-workouts commonly, creatine and beta-alanine, they're not time independent. You don't need to be taking them acutely before your workout. Now, I think people put them in their pre-workouts because, one, you get a tingle, you actually get a feeling from the beta-alanine, so people think that there's something happening. But they also have very, very good research in terms of helping exercise performance. Like, creatine is one of the most researched nutrients. Beta-alanine got some really robust evidence behind it in terms of helping with exercise performance. So putting it in a pre-workout supplement that you take before an exercise session makes sense. But if you look at this practically, most people will take a pre-workout 2, 3, maybe 4 times a week, like max. If you're getting the benefits of creatine are seen when you're taking it consistently, you need to load beta-alanine to see the benefits. So if you're only taking 2-3, some are massively underdosed of like 1.6 grams of beta-alanine. So even if you're taking a decent amount of like 3 to 5 grams, you're only taking it 2 to 3 times a week. Like eventually you will get to the point where you get saturation and you'll start to see the benefits, but you're missing the actual benefit of taking it on a time period where you're loading it, seeing the benefits, and you potentially kind of remove it depending on what your situation is. I don't think that that's a useful time or an area where you should be utilizing those two ingredients. You might be putting 10 grams of product in that pre-workout that doesn't have a benefit in terms of straight away an acute effect on that exercise session. And then you run the risk of not taking it consistently and not seeing the real benefits of it. So removing that and then allowing space for us to put carbohydrates in, which will have an acute benefit, and other ingredients, which we'll talk about now, alpha GPC, tyrosine, we've got betaine in there, obviously caffeine and L-theanine. These directly affect that workout. So they will help with focus, they will help with muscle contraction, they will help with blood flow, they will help with cellular hydration. Betaine helps with cellular hydration. And you're going to get more out of using that product because it will work acutely. So if you take it twice a week, you will see a benefit. Whereas if you took your caffeine, creatine, beta-alanine, you might feel something happening from the tingles of beta-alanine, and you might get the benefit out of caffeine. But the other two ingredients need to be saturated. They need to be taken consistently. And that's when, you need to be either taking your pre-workout every day. No one really wants to be doing that on your day off. Or you need to be taking them separately and utilizing them, kind of looping back when you periodize your nutrition, depending on what you're trying to achieve.
So this over-dependence on pre-workouts is sometimes, I guess, psychosomatic, and there's placebo in play.
In essence, yes. The tingling, yes, that placebo of like something's happening, but probably the most evidence-based ingredient in all pre-workouts is caffeine. So, people that put caffeine into their pre-workouts, like you're going to see a benefit.
Yeah.
And this is when we created the caffeine-free version of the workout fuel. A lot of the caffeine-free versions of pre-workouts that I found that I've used I didn't really feel a benefit. A lot of them were just done on blood flow, on a little bit of nootropic stuff, but it was massively underdosed. So we wanted to create something that gave people actual energy from a carbohydrate perspective, but also gave them that nootropic focus, motivation, support if they train in the evening or afternoon and they want to use a caffeine-free version.
So how do those nootropics work?
So we've got alpha GPC and tyrosine. So alpha GPC is a choline-containing phospholipid, and it's a precursor to acetylcholine. Now, acetylcholine and dopamine are two neurotransmitters. So you've got kind of four neurotransmitters: acetylcholine, dopamine, GABA, and serotonin. Acetylcholine and dopamine are the ones that kind of give you that energy, motivation, muscle contraction, focus. They're the ones that we were affecting using alpha GPC and tyrosine. And putting that in your pre-workout, that's what we want. We don't want to be feeling like calm and relaxed. We wanted to be getting that that connection to my workout, that focus. Acetylcholine is depleted during exercise, and we want to be making sure that we're supporting those two things. Alpha GPC also has some evidence behind it in terms of helping strength, helping performance, helping recovery. And this is where those two ingredients were really, for me, something that taking away that 5 grams of creatine or 4 grams of beta-alanine, it allowed us to have space to put these types of things in. Then betaine is, some people have seen it's trimethylglycine. So it's mechanism of action can be where it's a methyl donor. It can be an osmolyte, so it helps with cellular hydration. And then longer term use, it can help with strength. Some research shown it can help with body composition as well. Putting these things in and then having the separation with the creatine and beta-alanine was something that I found was a really, really nice kind of balance for people, as opposed to putting things in that weren't directly affecting that workout.
Am I right in thinking that L-theanine is something that plays synergistically with the caffeine to sort of overcome slumps and things like that?
Yeah, it reduces the jitters. Like it reduces the not say the negative effects. So some people like that kind of like feeling of caffeine, and it's not to say that it negates that like enhancements, that that boost that caffeine will give you, it just more kind of flattens it out and makes you feel a little bit more, well, less of the negative side effects. And that's definitely something that we've seen, like with the L-theanine and caffeine, like people feel no jitters, I feel connected, I feel balanced, as opposed to like I get this massive increase and then I kind of drop halfway through my workout.
Yeah, I mean, the workout fuel has been a game changer for me. I put it in my kind of morning stack. I think the biggest thing, because I did a bit of a test on myself without with the caffeine free one, and the motivation I think is the biggest thing. It's a weird feeling, but being 15 minutes into my workout and generally hunting for what's next in the session is something that I hadn't felt for a period of time, because I obviously train a lot, but often training can be a distraction from, and there's a lot of kind of head noise of what I need to get on with in that day or things that are upcoming. But through taking the workout fuel, I certainly feel more connected to the workout. I'm more intentional, and I'm like I say, I use the word hunting. I'm looking forward to kind of what's next and how can I progress these weights and things, which is for a period of time, although it sounds strange, I guess, for someone who's spent his whole life training, there was periods where the motivation to be in the gym just wasn't there at all.
Yeah, and that comes from that's your experience. But then imagine if you've worked all day and at the end of the day you got to motivate yourself for a workout. Like, I genuinely think that's why having that nootropic side, that nootropic support from boosting those two neurotransmitters is very beneficial for people. At the end of the day, it's hard to train at 6 p.m, hard to train at 7 p.m. So I'm not saying that you need to be using this every time, but I do think that hopefully there's a little bit of kind of transparency in terms of why we put those in there for those use cases.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, let's move on to something that is widely used now, and it's something that's I guess a hot topic: the world of electrolytes and hydration. Firstly, we've touched on the fact that people are going down the 0 calorie, 0 carbohydrate kind of route, and I'm not suggesting here there's no biases around whether there should be carbohydrate or any calories within an electrolyte product, but the mechanisms associated with cellular hydration. What sort of things should we be thinking about in conjunction with taking our electrolyte solution? Do we need carbohydrate to improve hydration or not?
You don't need it. Like, your body will hydrate using sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium, etc. But it doesn't help enhance it. So you will get a small benefit of having some carbohydrate in there, pulling the electrolytes in to be utilized in cellular hydration. It will help. Again, you don't need loads, and that's why we've got a small amount in our performance hydration.
Okay, and then those 6 electrolytes you mentioned, just talk me through the actions of each 6 of them. What are the important ones? Should we be looking for all 6 of them, or are there more important ones?
Yeah, so there's more important ones, like sodium, potassium, magnesium are probably the most important in terms of actual cellular hydration, like what we're trying to achieve out of a hydration product. You've got calcium, and you've got phosphorus, and these types of ones that you can get from your diet. Like, generally you don't need to be supplementing with these, and for hydration purposes you don't need a lot of them. So people putting high dose magnesium or putting calcium or all of these other ones in there, okay, you can use them, but our diets are not lacking in these types of things. And from a hydration perspective, I just think it's kind of fairy dusting things in with these to make it look like a more complete product. But I'm like, what are the big rocks in terms of hydration? Like sodium, decent amounts of sodium, potassium, and some magnesium.
So is it fair to say that it's sometimes just a marketing tactic to be
100%.
calling out all 6 electrolytes when it's not necessary?
Yeah, 100%. And also when they put in other things, like, okay, fair enough, like you can add B vitamins in, you can add vitamin C, you can add other bits into it, but what are you trying to create? Are you trying to create an all-in-one product, or are you trying to create a hydration product? Like, this is where having space in a product is really key, because I think something we'll talk about now is the elemental values or the actual bioavailability of a certain product can be wildly different to what people put onto a label. So allowing space for it, like we've got 750 milligrams of sodium in our product.
I mean, this is a big one. So I'm learning stuff every day working alongside you with our supplements. And something you sort of referenced the other week was sodium shown on packaging versus sodium the actual sodium content that we potentially need. And I as the layperson, even though I consider myself fairly well clued up on this sort of thing, I just look at sodium value within it, not quite knowing sodium chloride versus Himalayan salt, what these things actually mean to the actual sodium that I'm going to be, or the sodium that I need. So just run me through that, because you said it was something like 2.5 times.
Yeah. So salt, so sodium is 2.5 times the salt divided by 2.5.
So when I think of, a lot of people think of salt and will think salt is sodium.
Yeah. No.
So that's not true.
No.
Okay.
Salt contains sodium. For transparency, we have 1.8 grams of salt, trisodium citrate, in our hydration product, which equates to 750 milligrams of sodium. I see some products put
trisodium citrate. Yeah. So that's a type of sodium, is it?
Yeah. And so we have potassium citrate and magnesium malate. Now, the reason why we use magnesium malate is really, really good bioavailability, helps with energy production, as opposed to kind of more of a gut health laxative, reduction in constipation, which maybe magnesium citrate is more kind of, used for. So again, looking at the efficacy or the type of magnesium is very important. Looking at the amount of sodium is very important. Same as potassium. And we talked about the ratios, not having too much of potassium compared to sodium. Now, when we're looking at salt, like I've seen some labels recently have Himalayan pink salt 400 milligrams. Now, 400 milligrams will equate to 160 milligrams of sodium if you put Himalayan pink salt. So that's 400 milligrams of salt. So salt divided by 2.5 is 160.
Why would someone use Himalayan pink salt instead of sodium? Is it the cost to produce it? Is it?
Genuinely, I don't know. I do think that looking on from the outside in, that they think it's healthier. Like Himalayan pink salt has some trace minerals in, but these are in absolute minute amounts. So you might get a few of these trace minerals in that, but it's not quote unquote healthier than the other one because it's so small. And then I don't say you're duping the customer, but putting Himalayan pink salt 400 milligrams, the layperson will see that's 400 milligrams of sodium, and it's only getting 160. So you're then getting an inferior product. So, if you look at other ones there, then ours is potentially 3-4 times the amount in a serving compared to theirs. And I don't know why people do it. And you have to be very transparent on the labels. And this is where, with Marchon supplements, we want to be able to, the reason why we're doing these podcasts is to be very transparent, to be like, look, this is what we put into it. We know, and when there's no cloak and dagger, there's no smoke and mirrors. This is what we put into it. The thing is that it kind of lends itself to then why people don't see results with certain supplements. Like if they're underdosed, or they have low bioavailability, or they have, loads of different ingredients, like say massively underdosed, just to try to fill a product to make it look, we've got all of these different things. And the customer doesn't actually see the result that they think that they should from the product that they're using. So it's like a hydration product should hydrate, and sodium, potassium, magnesium are the big rocks.
Yeah, so it's a great point. And I suppose there's also to play into it is because Himalayan pink salt sounds way sexier and cooler than sodium, right? So it depends who you're trying to create this product for. Are you trying to create it for the fitness population, which are, in fact, we've talked to this before, most people are underhydrated or poorly hydrated. But the typical fitness consumer training 3 to 5 times a week, wants to do running, wants to do high roxes, whatever, like their sweat rate's going to be potentially slightly higher versus the I don't even know what they would be. Just the lifestyle type person that's looking to drink a hydration solution first thing in the morning to feel a little bit better about themselves, that they've done their hydration, not necessarily concerned on what their sports performance is going to be or its impact on their sports performance.
Yeah,
and that's maybe where I think, because electrolytes have become so cool, everyone's trying to just ram products that weren't necessarily for specific people down their throats to go, we do electrolytes and you should take this.
Yeah. With the electrolyte, I think everyone's just jumped on the bandwagon, and now it's got to the point where they're trying to put other things with it, creatine with it, B vitamins with it, vitamin C with it, high dose magnesium with it. And this is where you can go down the rabbit hole of trying to do too much. And actually, remember when I presented to you at the start to be like, there has to be an intention for this supplement. like in every single one. And I think sometimes people can end up trying to create a product that is trying to do too much and doesn't actually achieve a certain kind of goal. And this is why with the performance hydration, we increase the sodium, because we have that balance and better ratio to help you to optimally hydrate. Like sodium is the most key electrolyte, and we have a nice ratio. And other products, I think, are doing people a disservice.
What is the difference between trisodium citrate and sodium chloride?
I mean, they're just different forms of sodium. There's not one that's necessarily better. It's just the one that we've chosen to use in our product.
Okay, fine.
I don't know the molecular differences between them or why people would use certain ones, but there's not a huge difference between them.
Yeah, nice. Okay, cool. I think we've touched everything there from a hydration standpoint. One thing I get asked a little bit, well, quite often on hydration is it a first thing in the morning thing or is it a pre-workout thing? It's difficult because people see me take it first thing in the morning, which is my pre-workout. I also have the luxury of potentially being able to take it twice a day from a affordability standpoint, because these things do start to add up for people, right? If you're suddenly having to take things multiple times a day, what would be your key? Is it more important first thing in the morning in terms of optimizing your hydration status post being asleep, or pre-workout, or is it indifferent?
I think depending on when you're training, I think it's probably more important if you take it first thing in the morning as a general rule. Okay, getting up, getting hydrated, and then staying hydrated is going to have a massive benefit in terms of your performance, no matter when you train, and your overall hydration status across the day, rather than delaying it to later in the day. If you're training first thing in the morning, obviously you're taking that into consideration anyway. You're hydrating first thing, you're then training. If you're training later in the day, you should have ample opportunity to be able to eat foods that are containing electrolytes. You can salt your food, you can eat foods that contain potassium and magnesium and sodium across the day. So the requirement to necessarily hydrate becomes less important because you have ample opportunity to get it through whole foods. So I then think using a electrolyte product first thing in the morning becomes more beneficial. What I wanted to encourage people to do is to make sure that they are hydrated before their training session. So this is where we wanted to make sure that in that 30-minute window that they were consuming water as a non-negotiable. And then if it's earlier in the day and they haven't had that opportunity to eat something that's containing, specific electrolytes, or they've sweated because they've, sweated in the night and it's hot in the day or whatever, or they are just someone that naturally needs a little bit more electrolytes, then you can use it pre-workout as well. Like for me, that would be something that it's individual, but I would say most people first thing in the morning is going to be a benefit.
Yeah, good. I mean, for me, moreover than anything else, I think being able to take the hydration, the creatine, the omegas, the Vit D, first thing in the morning just means I've boxed it off and got it out of the way.
Well, exactly. It's habit stacking, isn't it? We've spoken about this. Like one of the reasons that there's a couple of reasons where people don't necessarily see the results that they think they should from taking supplementation. And one of them is behavior. The other one's physiological or underdosing, but one of them is behavior. It's like, I don't see results in the supplement. Like that works for my pal and it doesn't work for me. Well, is it the consistency that you're taking it? Do you sporadically take your omegas? Do you sporadically take your vitamin D? Like, I didn't really see a result or a benefit of that was because you took it like 3 times a week and then you missed a week and then you took it twice the following week. Whereas if you can get up and make it a consistent thing, you're going to see the benefit. And I think people worry about the timing and the timing of it, and they worry about this minor issue, whereas actually it's just more consistently taking it, you're going to see more of a benefit.
Yeah, perfect. So because it's topical for me, I actually started taking beta-alanine for the first time in a very long time this morning. I won't discuss why just yet, but it's something that we pulled out of our pre-workout. As we've mentioned, we've had a lot of people kick up a stink that we no longer do that pre-workout with the beta-alanine in it, and we've sort of given our reasons for creating the workout fuel. We're super confident in the workout fuel as a product, and super confident that we've ticks all the boxes with keeping beta-alanine as a separate standalone product. So I took 4 grams this morning, first day back on it. Why would someone take beta-alanine? Why do we choose 4 grams? I know there's no magic answer with 4 grams, but there's this loading period saturation we need to maybe discuss. So yeah, what is beta-alanine? Why would you take it? And what is sort of best practice with taking it?
Good. So beta-alanine is a precursor to carnosine. So carnosine is a intracellular buffer. So when we exercise at a higher intensity, we require our body to buffer the hydrogen ion buildup, and carnosine does this. So it allows us to train a little bit longer or increase the intensity that we're exercising at. Lots of research behind it. One of the reasons I took it out of the pre-workout is because I don't think that everybody needs to take it on a pre-workout. Like if you're doing just general bodybuilding or strength training, you're not necessarily doing something that's high intensity or higher volume, there's maybe not a real need for it. If you're doing more longer endurance stuff, again, there's not really a lot of research behind it. It's more for that kind of high rocks, functional fitness, CrossFit, more kind of mixed modal stuff that's going to be, it's more beneficial for team sports as well. It's got a lot of research behind it. The reason why we put 4 grams is because the saturation level is around 178 grams from the research. So we equated to 4 grams for 45 days gets you to that amount, which is then if you got 15 days extra, because we've got 60 servings, it allows you then to kind of just maintain a dose for a 2-month period leading into an event. And the reason why we take out the pre-workout is so you have the ability to be able to periodize your use of beta-alanine, because it's completely safe to take year round, but there's no real need to be taking it. The washout period is around 4 to 6 weeks. So you can, again, looking at from a cost benefit as well, if you use it leading into an event, you get that washout period, so you could potentially kind of cycle it every 3 months. So for me, that's why we put 4 grams, just to make it easier for you to be able to load it. Plus, taking 5-6 grams can often cause this, the paresthesia to be a little bit too uncomfortable. And then taking 1.6 or 2 grams just extends the time that you got to load. And it just becomes that you got to load it for 2 months or 3 months, or take multiple doses across the day. And again, just trying to remove that wellness admin of just like, I'm just going to take 1 scoop, it's 45 days or just over 6 weeks. I'm leading into my event. Bosh, I'm going to feel really, really good. So that was kind of thinking behind it.
Yeah, great. So am I right in thinking if you are a CrossFit competitor, someone training, doing it, and high intensity interval training or mixed modal work is year round for you, beta-alanine is something that could help potentially year 100%. Round. If you're someone that's working towards a high rocks race, for example, 6 weeks out is a good time to jump on. It's going to take you 45 days to experience if you go on 4 grams a day, and obviously we said you can take more. 45 days with our serving will get you to a place where you're now saturated, and then you feel the benefit thereafter.
100%. Yeah, you can bring that down if you wanted to take 1.5 scoops. You could bring that down to like 30 days and saturate from within and around a month. But again, the paresthesia can be uncomfortable for some people. So, around 4 grams is something that we found to be, that kind of sweet spot. If you do find that the tingle is too much, taking it with food can help. Or like say, splitting the dose or taking a smaller dose across the day can be something that reduces that.
It's fucking admin, isn't it?
I don't, but it goes back to the wellness admin, mate. Like you're taking a lot of supplements in the morning. Again, people, they're busy. It's hard to consistently take things, and it's all about consistency in terms of doing this. So trying to make it easier for people is definitely something that we're trying to do. And okay. I apologise for taking out the pre-workout.
Okay, we'll come on to some more supplements that we're kind of working on, and I guess ingredients that will be beneficial to people. But a key question is, why don't supplements work for some people? And I think this is obviously attached to the behaviour thing that you mentioned, and then also the underdose perspective with some products, and talking through what specific sort of dosing requirements are. But why don't some supplements work for people?
Yeah, so we've got the behavioural stuff that we spoke about. Then we also got the physiological side. So someone said, he said to me, oh mate, I've been taking vitamin D, I feel amazing. Or I've been taking omegas and I feel amazing. My recovery's great. You should be taking this to help you. Now, your predisposition might have been conducive to you being deficient in those, and helping you to taking those has helped you to fix that deficiency. So in like fixing a deficiency, you're probably going to see the biggest return on investment of any supplementation. So deficient in vitamin D, take a vitamin D supplement, get to a sufficient or an adequate level, you're going to see a benefit. I'm already there. I'm already got adequate levels. If I take it, I'm not going to see that return. I'm not going to, well, I don't really feel that much different. That's one of the reasons why people don't see results. And it's something why we advocate getting some blood work done to look what's under the hood. Like if you take omegas and your omega 3 to 6 ratio is really, really poor, so you're like, you've got heightened inflammation and you take this, then you might feel a benefit. I feel less sore. I feel like I'm recovering better. Then, you know, all of a sudden it's working for what's happening with your physiology. And this is where just like blanketly buying supplements off of, you know, a website because it's got an 80% sale is the wrong strategy. So the physiological side of things is definitely an area of behavior. And then we're talking about the type of ingredient or the dosage in certain supplements. So you might have gone to me, Liam, I'm taking a magnesium. I feel really great. Like my muscle, I feel more recovered. I feel like it's really helping me with my exercise and my performance. You bought one off a really good quality supplement product. I've gone to a supermarket and bought a magnesium. I don't feel any different. I'm using magnesium because it's a really important nutrient, and often the case is that people will underdose magnesium or not understand the bioavailability and values in terms of elemental value. So with magnesium and any mineral, you have the elemental value, which is the actual amount of magnesium that you get from a product. Then you have like the sodium and the salt, you have the amounts of the product. So if you see on a product like magnesium, say magnesium oxide, 200 milligrams, if they don't state that it's elemental, or if they don't say magnesium or as magnesium oxide, 200 milligrams, that can be 200 milligrams of powder, of magnesium oxide powder. So that's not the elemental value. So magnesium oxide has an elemental value of 60%, right? So you will be getting, so let's use 100 for my maths. So you're getting 60 milligrams, okay, of actual magnesium from that. You actually only get a 4% bioavailability of magnesium oxide. It's very poorly absorbed. So out of that 100 milligrams, you think you're getting that. You're actually getting 60 milligrams, but you're actually only absorbing 2.4 milligrams. I think that's about right. So you will then go, well, my magnesium isn't working. Like I don't feel any different. Whereas if you've got something like a magnesium glycinate or a magnesium malate where the bioavailability is lower, but the elemental levels are lower, but the bioavailability is so much higher.
In terms of the amount you absorb?
Yeah. So just to jump ahead, one of the products that we're going to create has magnesium in it. So we're going to have 200 milligrams of elemental magnesium glycinate. This is 1,300 milligrams of powder to create that. And the bioavailability is 90%. So all of a sudden you've gone, I'm taking this magnesium supplement, but I'm not actually seeing any benefit. Whereas you take a good quality one that's evidence-based in terms of the type, in terms of the elemental values, in terms of the bioavailability, you start to see a benefit. And so you go, your supplements do work, or this supplement does work. I feel benefit of this. And all of these things, on the label, they don't tell you this. And a lot of supplement companies will maybe not educate the consumer on this because, you know, they don't have the capacity to be able to put enough product into their one pill or one a day or their drink or their shake or whatever, because they're trying to do too much. It goes back to that, like trying to cram too much in there. And for me, that's another reason why supplements don't necessarily work.
Yeah, I mean, it is something that's a bit of a risk, right? When we'll come on to talk about a couple of these products, particularly the multivitamin. Because if you are asking someone to suddenly take 3 tablets as a multivitamin when they could buy an off-the-shelf multivitamin in a Boots, for example, where it's one a day,
yeah,
most people are going to go for the one a day because the ease. And then unless we can get the education across to them and they're in the forums or listen to platforms where we're trying to get this education across, and they've got to be aware and conscious and willing to listen to it as well, because it's It's like it takes effort to listen to this terminology and the wording and really you sort of buy into it. Companies like us that are trying to give efficacious doses with proper products and branded products as well within what we're doing. It's a tough slog, and there's risk involved.
Yeah, mate, it is a tough slog. Like there's no two ways about it. But I would rather go through this process of trying to bang the drum and educate people than put out a subpar product that isn't going to be something that people are going to feel the benefit of. So educating people on elemental values, educating people on the bioavailability, the different forms of magnesium, why we've chosen glycinate, because it's a organic chelated form of magnesium. So it's bound to glycine, and that helps to increase the bioavailability, whereas magnesium oxide is an inorganic form, and that's why the bioavailability is very low. So the type of magnesium matters, and the type of zinc matters, the type of B vitamin matters. All of these things really will dictate the quality of the product and whether people feel the benefit of it.
Yeah, awesome. Let's come on. We'll touch a little bit more on some of those products. I'm really excited by the multivitamin, strangely. But you referenced blood work there as a I guess a key marker in determining where you might need to build your nutrition strategy out based on what's actually going on under the hood. I know at previous talks, Men's Decks, as an example, you've given places for people to go for blood work. Just give me those now so listeners can know to where to go. To that.
At home testing now is excellent. So we got Omnos is a really, really cool company, and they've expanded their range massively now. There's lots going on, but I would suggest that people go for like a more of a overall panel at the start. They've got a wellness male and a wellness female. They're really good. Then you've got Thriver that allows you to get some profiles, but also build your own. So makes you, once you're a little bit more educated, or once you've done a kind of full panel, you can then kind of pick and choose. And the last one would be MediChecks. So those three, go and have a look and see which profiles that kind of fit you. It's relatively simple to kind of go through this, but I would definitely look at like an overall panel first. So like trying to get as many markers as you can. So like trying to get the 40, 50 biomarkers as opposed to like the one that says like 6 biomarkers on it. If you've never done blood work before, because that's going to give you a better, fuller picture of what what you're deficient in, what you require.
And how often?
At the start, I would say that get that full panel done, and then depending on what comes back, like you can then dictate when you do any further testing. So if you come back and you're like, it's fantastic, I'm in the green across the board, I feel good, then you could probably do it later in the year, and maybe once a year, maybe once every 6 months, like if you're good, if you really want to know the data. Because as we've spoken about previously, like everything is trends. So you with blood work, you need to look at trends. So if you're doing it, you're feeling good, once a year, I think is more than adequate, unless you start to feel negative symptoms or anything. If you have issues, like if something is raised there or you're low in something, then put an intervention in. Food first, like Google the foods that will contain that nutrient, or look at how you can adjust your diet, look at targeted supplementation, and then it might be like a 3-month period that you want to retest, but you can retest that marker. You don't necessarily need to do the full panel again. So like you start to then become a little bit more targeted in terms of your blood work, then you might want to do another full panel, like say once a year. So that's how I would ask people to kind of approach it. And it's definitely something that's more of a, if you really want to get advanced on it, you can do more testing. Like you can start to go in terms of like, stool testing, in terms of potentially genetic testing. But if you're just looking for the general health, like I want to know what's happening, my physiology right now, just do that full panel once a year.
It's funny, right? Because this stuff really isn't common practice.
No, it's not.
Particularly in the UK. Are you suggesting everyone should just go and do this as a good start point?
I genuinely think that people should. I think it's so widely accessible now, and it's looking at your physiology. So it removes a lot of the guesswork. It gives you some objectivity in terms of what's actually happening at this moment in time with you. The reason why I want you to look at trends is because being reactive with it can be, potentially an issue. So if we're looking at cholesterol, for example, if you get your cholesterol tested once, okay, and you never do it again, I don't know if that cholesterol is trending up or if that cholesterol is trending down, okay? So you might go, oh, I'm in the green, I'm fine. And then you don't get it tested for 5 years, and all of a sudden you're on a trajectory that's going right up through whatever reason. But if you test this regularly, like I said, even once a year is more than enough. You can start to see like, oh, okay, well, I'm trending up. I need to address that. And it just loops back to that proactivity with your health, like putting some effort in, getting some objective data, like, don't bury your head in the sand, just kind of get through, like step up and look at what's happening. And then you can make some targeted interventions. We talk about the price point of supplements and doing all this. You can streamline things. You might not need vitamin D. You might not need certain, zincs or, other supplementation, because your diet habits are conducive to helping you to be sufficient in certain things. But if you're deficient, then you can target that supplementation. And again, looping back to the periodization chat, like you might be deficient in vitamin D for certain parts of the year, so you can just supplement at that part of the year. And actually, through your lifestyle and whatever, you actually get enough in the summer months. Or you're someone that works away or you spend a lot of time in the office that you might need to supplement with vitamin D for longer periods of time. It just streamlines things, and I genuinely think that everybody should be doing it.
Yeah, great point. So if someone it comes back and there's a few red flags, you reference there, Google search and see what interventions can be made through diet. What sort of expert who's there for them to be able to reach out to? Is it a nutritionist well equipped to deal with this? Is it a GP matter?
Definitely go to your GP if there's like red flags in there with anything to do with like red blood cell, white blood cell, thyroid, kidney, liver, these type of thing. Okay, go to your GP if you're concerned about anything and get them to have an insight on it. A lot of the blood work companies have consultation services or advice built in. That would be my first step, rather than just going and finding a nutritionist, because a lot of nutritionists wouldn't be clued up or trained to interpret blood work. So they would just probably read the report and regurgitate that. But the blood work companies now have built a pretty robust service to be able to offer you advice. It might be an extra cost. Some of them include it in terms of the reporting, but the reporting can sometimes be overwhelming, but most of the time it's pretty like targeted to be like, look, these are the types of things you need to be doing.
Nice.
If anyone has got any things, I'm more than happy to answer questions on like social media or anything else like that. But yeah, like most of the time you can get it through the company that you've got to test through.
You were doing blood work with your footballers every day, right? Or every week?
At Fulham, we were doing it more regularly, but this wasn't looking at like
that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. That was more like twice a year we would do a bigger panel. And then the more day-to-day was looking at like inflammation, testosterone, cortisol levels, like immune markers. So that was more kind of like acute stuff. But we were doing the full blood panels on people. And when I started to coach with athletes, it was a non-negotiable that you got blood work before you started working with me.
Love that. Okay, let's move on to the final piece of this, which is just talking about kind of new supplements which are coming, because I'm so excited about them. But we've got a multivitamin and we have an endurance product that we're bringing out. Let's touch on the multivitamin first. We don't necessarily need to give away our formulation, although it's going to be public knowledge within a few weeks. But what are we trying to achieve with our multivitamin? Because I'll be honest, when I think about a multivitamin, I just think about that vitamin, whatever that I take, because my mum made me take it and I should take it every day. I don't take a multivitamin now, and actually through my own nutrition practice over the last couple of decades, it's almost become something that's redundant, because there's nothing on the market that is, I guess, reputable or would actually create any sort of benefit to someone taking a multivitamin. So what was the problem we saw with multivitamins, and kind of what's our solution?
Yeah, it's a very good question. That was why I wanted to create it, because I found that there was problems with multivitamin, like underdosed, poor bioavailability, and just not targeted enough for the kind of modern day requirement. So what we've done is kind of encapsulated the requirement for a ZMA, encapsulated the requirement for a B vitamin, a high dose methylated, high bioavailable B complex. We've got a mineral complex in there, and we've got vitamin C, and we've got some adaptogens in there to help with that kind of stress management, and just kind of bringing everything together. We've also got a compound in there to help with absorption. So what we're trying to do is remove that wellness admin. We've specifically chosen the vitamins and minerals in it and removed some to allow that space. So again, looking at, this isn't replacing all of the, this isn't replacing your requirement to eat well. It's helping you to support a modern day lifestyle, providing the things that are very challenging to get from food, but also things that need more regular kind of intake, such as B vitamins. They're water soluble. We need to continually take them, and removing the things that you can easily get from your diet or not necessarily deficient. But things like magnesium we're going to be including in there because it's very hard to get from the diet. But also, as we've spoken about, the elemental value was that, and zinc we've got in there that is going to be really beneficial for people because it's actually going to provide the amounts that it says and not underdosing it. So you're actually going to hopefully feel a real benefit of taking this.
Do you want to touch on ashwagandha or not?
Yeah,
I know you deliberately didn't say it.
No, we didn't actually preface what we're going to talk about or what we're going to expose. We are going to include ashwagandha in there, and I do think that this is an adaptogen that has got more and more evidence in terms of stress management, anxiety, but also exercise performance, strength development, like helping with testosterone production, reduction in cortisol. And the evidence just keeps becoming more and more. And I think for people that are taking a multivitamin, we're looking for it to help with like everything. Like we're looking for help with recovery. We're looking for it to help with overall health, stress, like the stress that we're placing on our body. And I think that ashwagandha really ticks a lot of these boxes. Removing that wellness admin, like having a multivitamin and having an ashwagandha and having another product that maybe it's a B complex or something else. Again, people trying to take all of these products is challenging. So the ashwagandha side of things is just that for a majority of people, I think it's going to have a big benefit. The research is becoming more and more robust, and I think it's an excellent addition to a modern day multivitamin.
Nice. And for those people that are fairly clued up on ashwagandha, KM66 is the only form that people should be looking to take. So what is it called? A branded product?
Yeah, so it's a branded product. So it's a root extract. So again, looking at the quality of an ingredient, if you're looking at the plant, the leaf of of ashwagandha, it's very, very cheap. So again, you need to be looking at the label. It needs to say like ashwagandha root, or you might see withania. Like this is the kind of what do you call it? The Ayurvedic name of it. If you can look at this, the KSM 66 is one which is a root extract. You're going to get better quality of an ingredient using this.
Nice. And is it fair of me to say that we have incorporated a dose of magnesium, ashwagandha, B vitamins, and all those things that is comparable to everything else on the market, but it's in one product? Sick. Last one, the endurance product. It's something that we've been bouncing around now for the last few months. As with everything, and you talked this earlier on in the episode, we've been trying to bring things to the supplement range that plugs holes in things that we fundamentally see are there, but also stays within this lane for the sorts of people that we want to try and serve. So our endurance product is a combination of mushrooms, right? So mushrooms and beetroot. Yeah. Cordyceps is going to be something that many people are familiar with, but just talk me through, cordyceps and I guess mushrooms in general, and why beetroot extract and the ratio of what we've put in there. Yeah,
so nitrates, again, a lot of evidence behind them in terms of helping with strength performance, with helping with endurance performance, helping to lower the oxygen cost of energy, helping with blood flow, and getting it from a shot can sometimes be something that people don't necessarily want to do. We need to hit a certain amount of nitrates. So research shows it's around 450 milligrams. So we used a beetroot extract to be able to get 450 milligrams of nitrate.
So we're talking about the beetroot shots that people are taking pre-marathon, pre-high rocks, etc.
Yeah.
And they're usually taking these sort of 5 to 7 days out.
Yeah, so you can use there's two ways to use it. You can use it on a daily basis to help with exercise with your training, but you can also use it acutely leading into an event, okay? We've used this in terms of a product that, again, probably more aligns with taking it in certain time periods leading into an event, or when your training is going to be intense. And nightshades is really, really going to help with this. Like the research is becoming more and more robust in terms of helping the type of exercise that are that most people are doing these days: half marathons, high rocks, more functional fitness events. These type of things. There's a lot of research behind it. With the mushroom complex, so similar to ashwagandha, basically it helps with adaptogens. Help with the bodies to regulate stress management. So it helps with parasympathetic activity. So helps you to build a bigger stress cup, and it helps to regulate your response to improve your autonomic nervous system. Ashwagandha and the one we've got here, cordyceps, with other mushrooms in it. Ashwagandha doesn't necessarily have the improvement in terms of the aerobic kind of side of things, but cordyceps does, and the other ones do. So this is why we put it in the more endurance product, because it's just slightly more targeted in terms of improving aerobic capacity and helping your body to deal with the stressors that are more aligned to slightly higher intensity exercise and more endurance-based exercise.
Nice. So multivitamin is going to be a daily staple for everyone to be taking.
Yep.
And the endurance products is, again, a bit like our... bit like beta-alanine, where you're going to be periodizing it throughout the year based on what you've got coming up.
Yeah, I think so. I think, again, trying to have intention behind why you're creating a supplement, I think, is really key, and ensuring that people have these opportunities with the range to be able to kind of dip in and out depending on what they're doing across the year, as opposed to be saying like, here's our range, you need to be taking everything all of the time. It's just it's just not something that people need. So having this opportunity, I think, is really, really good. And yeah, I'm super excited about these products. I think that I spend a lot of time looking at the research, a lot of the time looking at the formulations, and I'm so excited because I do think that it's going to help plug a lot of gaps, support a lot of people's training, but also look at really helping people with kind of helping their health and longevity, and just helping people just get a product that actually does what it says on the tin, as opposed to just being like, oh, I'm taking a multivitamin because my mum said it. This has things in it that are really going to help you live a life without limits.
Yeah, sick. I love, from the conversations we've had over the last few weeks, I just love how progressive, forward-thinking and disruptive that we're trying to be. I know not everything we're trying to achieve will be able to be achieved from a commercial standpoint, or even just the logistics of trying to get these things into supplementation. But I think what we've got coming up is super, super exciting. I think that's probably where I want to leave it for today, because this is going to be a fairly long episode. But I think next time we'll follow up in fairly quick succession with unpacking any questions that people might have off the back of the first 2 episodes, because there is a lot of information to sort of take on board and understand. And I think people will have their own sort of specific questions, which I think will be relevant to a number of different people as well, because I think the listeners are going to have some similarities. So next time around, we'll open up sort of an open floor for a Q&A format. But I think today's been awesome at unpacking everything we wanted to. So more advanced nutrition strategies, supplementation, things that we currently see as potential problems or holes with what maybe other brands or what the industry is doing from a sports nutrition standpoint, and how we can nestle in and have a key point of difference. That's been epic, mate. Just reiterate again, it's been so good to have you join the team. I know the impact that you've had not only with the supplements, but the upcoming developments with the app is quite frightening. I released a short clip yesterday on my stories with the nutrition support that's coming to the app, and what the boys in conjunction with yourself have been creating is incredible.
Yeah, I think it's an incredibly exciting time, mate. And like I say, I'll echo that. Like, I think I put my stories, like the pace that's been set is uncomfortable, but we wouldn't have it any other way. And yeah, there's just so much exciting things that are going to be coming that I just think really going to help people, get more out of their training and improve their nutrition.
Sick. All right, mate. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.